You got to wait for a gapper.
That is fair. Down the right field line. Giambi on his way to third.
Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman.
Well, good morning, and a pleasant good Monday morning to each and every one of you. We welcome you, as always, to Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm Thom Brennaman. A pleasure to be joined, as always. Back in the saddle, Casey McAllister, after a trip to Bloomington, Indiana.
Yeah.
Little 500.
Little 500. It was a great time.
It's big time.
Me and Trace got to experience something new. It was a big deal. Really big deal down there.
Paulie held down the fort beautifully. Paulie, good morning.
Hey, Thom, how are you?
Good. We had a big day on Friday. Sorry we missed you guys. We got a lot coming up here, and we got to get right to it. You can find us. We're on 10 a.m. to high noon, Monday through Friday. You can find us on YouTube, the Chatterbox Sports page. You can find us in podcast form. Just search Off the Bench with Thom Brennaman, and you're dialed in. Now, you may remember, we talked on Thursday about what the Reds would do over this weekend. They were playing a team a lot like themselves in the Pirates. A low payroll, a lot of young players, yes, some veterans sprinkled in here and there. But there is nothing, absolutely nothing that these two teams have in common right now when you watch them play. Pittsburgh is 16-7. The Reds, 7-15. One team comes to play every night. The other clearly does not. It's not like the Pirates blew the doors off the Reds in 4 games over the weekend. In fact, the games were pretty tight. But when all was said and done, the Buccos swept the Reds, capped off by yesterday's 2-0 shutout at PNC Park. Hunter Green was good, really good. 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 single run that came in the first inning. But those numbers were good enough to get Green a loss. Why? How about 6 total runs in the 4 games in Pittsburgh? How about 6 total runs in their last 6 games without a single home run? I mean, are you kidding? We wondered at the start of the year if this team could ever score. And they did score for the first couple of weeks. But outside of a blow-up game here and there recently, this team is hitting exactly the way we thought they would and the way the back of their bubblegum cards read. And it is sad to watch. The Reds return home tonight to face one of the best teams in all of baseball, Texas. The Rangers' run differential is plus 60. That's second best in the majors to Tampa Bay. And Texas is 14-7. Nathan Eovaldi goes against Nick Lodolo at 6:40. Gentlemen,
Tickets are available.
it's going to be chilly down there tonight. Speaking of the Rays, do they ever lose? They tied the Major League record by winning their first 13 games. They had that stretch, 1 loss to the Reds. They lost 3 out of 4. And now they've ripped off 5 straight wins. 18-3, the record. Downtown mayhem Saturday night. Another game, another sellout, another win for FC Cincinnati. 2-1 over Portland. FC is tied for the best record in the Eastern Conference with New England, and guess who they play next? That's right. They play at New England. That's Saturday night. NBA playoffs. Cavs are in big trouble. They trail the New York Knicks 3-1 in their best-of-7 opening round series. The Knicks defense has just completely smothered Cleveland. Game 5 is Wednesday night. Other winners yesterday, Golden State hung on, luckily, to beat Sacramento 126-125. That series now even at 2 apiece. Boston up 3-1 on Atlanta. Minnesota got Denver, but the top seed Nuggets are a win away from closing out that series. The Milwaukee Bucks are hoping to have Giannis back for Game 4 tonight in Miami. The top seed Bucks trail 2-1 against Atlanta. Another critical game for tonight. Pits Memphis in L.A. The 7-seed Lakers lead the Grizzlies, a 2-seed, 2-1. Winners in the NHL playoffs last night, Carolina and Houston both win, lead their respective series 3-1. Dallas and Edmonton got wins to even their series at 2-2. All right, coming up on the show today, legendary writer from the Cleveland Plain Dealer, Kay Cabot, to talk about the Browns. Brownies!
The stinking Browns? Yikes.
By the way, Mary Kay is a nominee for the Bill Nunn Jr. Award that goes to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. She will find out if she'll be elected on Wednesday. She's probably not here yet, I'm guessing.
No.
I flew through that monologue. It was chaos downtown Saturday night. I had to go down to a charity event for the Cincinnati Arts on Saturday night, and it was at Music Hall. And so I'm driving down there, thinking, okay, I know the regular spots I'll be able to park when I get down there by Washington Park, right in the garage underneath there, right? No. Full. People everywhere. Blue and orange. I had to drop my wife and a buddy off at Music Hall and then drive 11 blocks around Greater Cincinnati to find a single parking spot. Crowd's amazing.
Yeah, and it's just been a really good season for them at home right now. The orange and blue are going to come out and support their team when they're doing well, and they haven't had a lot of success there at TQL. They've had a lot of draws, a lot of losses there. So the wins, I really get the crowd going out there. So I wouldn't expect anything less from TQL right now.
Nope.
Yeah. Similar to Thom, I was staying at an Airbnb for a wedding that was downtown in OTR on Saturday night, and the Airbnb we were staying at was right across the street from Washington Park, right there. And I had forgotten that the FC game was at home. I knew they were playing Portland. Thought that game might have been on the road. Then I realized it was home, and the streets were closed, and it was a nightmare, but it was a fun environment. I got down there luckily a little bit before the streets were closed. But then by the time I called the Uber to get up to Rhinegeist, poor guy was going, I need you to walk around the block. The roads are closed. The roads are closed. It was a good crowd, though. Another sellout.
Yeah. Another good win.
I mean, it's amazing. I still have not been in that stadium. I got to get down there.
You got to get there before.
Yeah, I got to get there. Because they I was just amazed. And maybe I shouldn't be because I know they sell out every game. But I just couldn't believe the amount of people. I tell you what, man, this city's got it going on. I know we have our issues just like a lot of other cities. Ours aren't as bad as a lot of other cities, and there are others that are in better shape than we are. But I will tell you, when it comes to going out at night, going to restaurants, if you're going to bars, if you're going down to the soccer game, that area of OTR is just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I've traveled cities literally all over the world. And in recent years, we've seen chaos where there's no way in a million years. And look, Over-the-Rhine has their share of violence. There's no denying that, okay? And you're never going to end that entirely no matter what you do. But I don't know how many cities at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night in the most happening area of any particular city for young people, right? I mean, there are families walking around down there at 9:30, 10 o'clock. Young couples with strollers and their kids. I mean, I tell you what, they got it going on down there.
The area is definitely transformed. I mean, I remember being a kid from a rural town like Blanchester, hearing about OTR back in the day. Nowadays, it's a great spot to go. It's awesome to go down and to eat, drink, have a good time.
Yeah.
I know one of my favorite spots down there in OTR is we were just talking about the other day, that barbecue spot.
Oh, Lucius Q.
Yeah, Lucius Q. I love going down there. They
Yeah.
got a little ice cream joint right across the street from there.
Yes.
Too. Yeah, that's a good date spot. I like going there.
You ever been down there, Tom, Lucius Q?
I've walked by it. I've not
Okay.
been in there.
It's
But
good.
I know what you're talking about. They always have a big crowd down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of events, I was looking at this yesterday because one of my friends and I were talking about trying to get to an FC game, and the next 3 Saturday games that they play I can't get to. Then I looked at they have a game on July 1st at home.
Oh, we know what that is.
There is also
That's Ella Brennaman's birthday, but we also know what's going on that night.
Well, not only is that the Taylor Swift concert happening that night, that's night 2 of Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm.
There is an FC home game. There is also a Reds game that day.
Oh,
Ooh.
that'll be happening, man.
The Reds game's at 1:40, but 1:40 into a Taylor Swift into a FC. July 1st, it's a Saturday. City's going to be popping.
I tell you, I wonder if the town can handle that. And I'm not being mean about that when I say it, but I'm being sincere. I mean, just on Saturday with an FC game down there and all the other events. I mean, you just named 2 huge things in FC and clearly Taylor Swift taking the cake and the crown there. But a Reds game during the day, I wonder how they're going to handle it. You got the concert, much further downtown, obviously.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay because if you think the Oktoberfest and stuff like that, when they'll have a Bengals game or a Reds game on the same day as an Oktoberfest, usually those games try to be out of town. But Miami and UC football played this year on the same Saturday as Oktoberfest. I mean,
did you just say Miami?
Yeah, but I'm saying it was at Paycor. That game.
Miami against UC.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Okay.
That Paycor game was down at.
Yeah.
It was down there the same day as Oktoberfest. So, yeah, it'll be popping in the city that day.
That will be a huge day.
Yeah.
We've got some regulars back in the chat today. Everett, back. Ohio Lakers 513. Is that a newcomer that I've missed?
That's someone I haven't really seen much of.
I mean, he's dialed in.
He's dialed in. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely, we appreciate PB's Ghost. And our main man. I got to tell you, CJ's back. But how about Sir Boy Wonder? We're going to have a little, he is going to be today a little video clip of our buddy Sir Boy Wonder 513.
After Mary Kay.
That's how we're going to cap off the Reds talk.
Yeah.
Can't wait for that.
Sir Boy Wonder, he is all the rage. All the rage. Now, come on, Everett. He said literally one sports event this weekend, and the city could barely handle it, along with charity events. And we want basketball in the NHL. Come on now, Everett. Don't be so negative. Don't be so negative. Is Mary Kay here yet?
She's not here yet.
She's not here yet. Okay. Well, she hasn't written me back. I hope she's going to join us because we got a lot to talk about with your Cleveland Browns. Because they do not have a single – I didn't realize this. I mean, we've been so focused on the Bengals and the whole, quarterback thing and, who's going to take who, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud. We bounced around the league. The Brownies do not have a single pick in the first 2 rounds.
No, they traded those away with that trade for Deshaun,
Yep.
right?
It's the second year in a row they haven't had a first pick in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, I guess they decided to model their team after the Rams and just kind of go all in and trade for a bunch of superstars. Well, specifically a superstar quarterback, but we'll see if it works out for them. I'm not too hopeful for them, but they're the Browns, Tom.
I have reached out to 3 different people. We may have to go back to our buddy Engravens.
Yeah.
Because I have reached out to 3 very prominent media members in Baltimore and not a single word back. They must be, boy, now you talk about a downtown that's gone to the toilet. Oh my God. They got curfews in that town.
What?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Draft starts, of course, Thursday night. The player formerly known as Mouse Cop says C.J. Stroud is dropping like Bud Light.
He is on a lot of people's boards, and it's It's all out because of that cognitive test that he took. He scored like a 18% out of 100 on the cognitive.
How do you get an 18%? I don't know what that test is.
Is that the Wonderlic thing you're talking about?
Yes,
Well,
the Wonderlic thing.
It's a new version of the Wonderlic, right? They
Yeah.
got rid of the Wonderlic, and then this is what replaced it.
Yes.
But it's the same idea. It's trying to accomplish the same thing as the Wonderlic.
Okay.
Apparently, quarterbacks that score below a 50 don't even come close to making it in the NFL. Apparently.
Yeah, 18%.
Yeah, 18%.
Well, anybody believes that Stroud's dropping out of the top 4, they're out of their mind.
Oh,
It's not happening.
I don't think so either. But
Not happening. He's too good on the field. Way too good. Way too good. All right, well, let's see here. I'm going to double check real quick, make sure it didn't go to spam or anything like that. Nope. All right, we'll see. We are waiting on Mary Kay Cabot from the Cleveland Plain Dealer. While we have a minute, fellas, what we're going to do, you and I, now this is not a done deal yet, but theoretically, Casey, you came up with an idea about maybe what we should do on Thursday, NFL draft coming around, right?
Right.
And that Paul and you and I, and this is probably news to Paul, he wasn't in the room yet,
Right.
where we were going to pick 3 players each that we thought would be available when the Bengals draft picks come around for the first 3 rounds, first, second, third rounds, right?
Right.
3 players each, and then which one we would take if we were in the Bengals position.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And the idea of it is to kind of give like we might have some crossover. I'm sure 1 or 2 of us will say Michael Mayer. Maybe 1 or 2 of us will say Darnell Wright or DeJuan Jones or something like that. But it's in order for us to kind of get an idea, just really quickly, like a 5-10 minute, maybe 15-minute segment about who to expect at round 1, 2, and 3. What names could be there? Who we would take as the Bengals GM, and do a little semi mock draft, but not fully in mock draft of the Bengals.
All right, I want to interrupt because I have screwed something up here. There was an email from her that I missed very late last night, where she said she would prefer to do Tuesday rather than today.
Okay.
So that is my fault. That is not her fault. So tomorrow, Mary Kay Cabot will join us to talk about the Browns. All right, look. So, Paul, you're on board with that?
Yeah, works for me.
We're good?
Yeah, so we're picking 9 players, basically.
Well, basically, yeah. We're going to choose 9 guys we think are going to be around.
Sure.
Okay? And then at that point, if you were sitting in Duke Tobin's spot, Katie Brown Blackburn spot, whomever is going to be the one that does the picking or the combination thereof, which of the 3 would you pick? As we sit here today, and I want to get to the Reds here in a minute. As we sit here today, are you leaning more and more towards an area? Now, Duke Tobin made the comments the other day at the press conference. He says, look, we don't play that game. We don't reach for a player we believe is a second-round talent and try to fit a need by making that player a first-round pick. He said, because you can draft him wherever you want to draft him. But if we've graded him out with our scouts and we believe the talent bears out a second or third-round pick, they're not going to be a better player just because you picked him in the first round. Right?
Correct.
Okay. So if you sitting here today, Casey, and we have 3 days from now for you to make this determination, and Paul, you as well, looking at the roster and the makeup of the roster as it currently stands, you would be leaning, all things being equal, you would be leaning more towards what position area first round?
So based off of that concept of trying to not reach for a player and taking best player available, I think the most likely position that will be open to the Bengals that fits those parameters would be, in my opinion, DeJuan Jones, but we're not going to go there this time. I'm going to say probably defensive lineman, edge rusher.
Okay.
Or corner. That's what I think will be there. That won't be a reach.
Not tight end. You think the good tight ends are gone?
I think the good tight ends will be gone.
Or at least the top guys.
Yeah. I think Mayer.
Kid from Utah, Mayer, those guys, right?
Yeah, I think those two will be gone by the time the Bengals pick.
I wouldn't draft a tight end in the first round anyway. How about you, Paul?
I mean, I wouldn't be against it if you've been listening to my takes for a while. I like what Mayer would bring. I think there's also the hometown effect of it, too. I just think there's a little something there. But if you've also heard me talk about what this team needs and what I'd like to see the Bengals get, it's a pass rusher. I would love to see the Bengals be able to pressure the opposing quarterback better than they have in the last couple of years. Consistently.
Yes.
Consistent pass rushing.
Yep.
Maybe I overvalue it, but it's just what I think. It'd be nice to go out there and see them week in and week out get some good pressure on the quarterback.
I don't think there's any way, shape, or form you're overvaluing that. I mean, just take the very premise of what you're talking about, okay? And this is the case in basketball. It's a case in football. I watch a lot of lacrosse. It's the same thing there. It's the same thing in hockey, okay? When you apply pressure to human beings, and I'm talking about physical pressure, and if you apply enough physical pressure, it then becomes mental pressure, okay? If you're a point guard in basketball, or you're just a player on the wing, and you've got some guy that every single time you touch the ball, they are on you like you know what, stink on blank, right? And I mean, they're physical, and they're forcing you to do things in a hurry, right? Some guys handle it better than others. That's just the story of life, and that could be the pressure of having to meet sales numbers. If you're a sales guy, the pressure of having to face a deadline on some proposal, whatever it might be. Okay? But when you're talking about physical pressure, a quarterback will make by far more mistakes under pressure than the guys that can just stand back there and feel good about what's going on around them and not having that mental part of, oh, my God, I'm going to catch this ball in the shotgun, and I've got about 2.5 seconds, and then I'm going to get killed by 300 men with violence on their minds. And the Bengals have not had that pass pressure. Not like that, where other teams are very concerned. The Bengals defense was great last year. We said all along, we thought, at least I said all along, that I thought it was the best part of the team, despite the offense getting all the glory and all the big names and all the stars. The defense last year was good enough and was good enough to win, not get to win the Super Bowl. The offense was not good enough last year to win the Super Bowl. Part of that was the offensive line being unable to hold up, and yes, there were a lot of injuries. But, Paul, I don't think you can put enough emphasis on it. You got guys that are going and hitting that quarterback. And, I mean, you may be a step late sometimes, but you light him up. They're looking around. And they get gun shy. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I think you might be onto something, Paul. I mean, I don't know. I find it so weird. I was going through, Casey was talking about Pro Football Focus, and they ranked their top, 200 prospects, whatever it was, and going through there and looking at some of the guys, pass rushers, that are going to be available when the Bengals pick in the first round, second round, third. And, some of the strengths and weaknesses on each player. I mean, look, when you start getting into, and I can't remember the kid's name, he's from Iowa State, I think it is.
Will McDonald.
Okay, I'm not smart enough to know when they tell me in this, little capsule of the guy that he played in a different sort of system there at Iowa State, right? He's better in space, okay, because he's a little light, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm confusing him with another guy that I was reading about this morning. But, to me, I don't know what that means. I can read it and know what it means, but I don't know what it means when you put him on a field. Is he a guy you can line up on the edge out there on the outside? And, okay, he might have played a certain, style in a certain system at Iowa State in this case or somewhere else, anywhere else. Is he going to be a guy now that is going to get to the quarterback?
Right. I think at least in the Bengals defense, they like to have big edge rushers, guys that they can depend on to set the edge, and guys that, will always carry out their responsibilities. They're not going to go and get guys that are 235, 240 to try to just only pass rush. That's just not their MO. That's why Hendrickson and Hubbard have been really good for us, I feel like, for a while now. They're not, they're not your Myles Garretts of the world, and they're not the dominant pass rushers, but they always seem to be able to carry out the responsibilities, get good run stops, set the edge, carry out the responsibilities every time. A guy like Will McDonald, he's a bigger, longer guy. So you might have been thinking of Nolan Smith. That's a guy that's smaller.
No, that's the guy from Georgia, right?
Yeah, that's the guy from Georgia.
Okay.
He plays that wide 9, almost linebacker type role where he can drop into coverage.
Yep.
But back to Will McDonald, because I don't think.
Which, by the way, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I've never understood that nonsense. I really don't.
The weight thing?
Well, no, the drop the guy. Isn't Trey Hendrickson's job to get to the quarterback? That's his job.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Sam Hubbard, that's his job. Why in the world do they drop these guys back in coverage? Go get the quarterback. You pay those guys to do that job. Find somebody else to cover somebody in cover. I know you're disguising and all that. I get it. But when you know the other team is getting ready to throw the football, you are paying guys big money, in Hendrickson's case, to go get the quarterback.
Right.
Right?
Yep. I agree with that. I think, part of why Lou was so successful against the Chiefs was because of that only rushing 3, dropping 9, or dropping 8, however you want to. I can't remember. It's dropping 8, I believe. And that was very successful for him, and he would have someone spy the quarterback, and they would contain Mahomes, and Mahomes wanted to try to rush outside the pocket, realized he couldn't do that, and, wasted too much time, and then they would eventually get to him. But this last game in the championship round, it just felt like that was not working, that he was, adapting to that sort of play style to where they couldn't just contain him in the pocket anymore. He was staying in the pocket, letting it rip, and in the end, they only scored 23 points. Let's be fair.
That's why I say their defense was good enough to win a Super Bowl.
Right, and it's not like the scheme is bad. It's pretty reliable up to this point. But in terms of player personnel and whatnot, you would think a guy like Nolan Smith, who can also sometimes play the run, not as dominant as a Hubbard because the size difference, but a guy like Nolan would be much more acclimated to be able to do that sort of thing where he can drop back in coverage because he's athletic enough, but he can also do a much better job at pass rushing because of the speed there.
Yes.
But anyways, it's a very interesting conversation when it comes to pass rushers. I personally don't think the Bengals are going to go with a guy that's undersized. They're probably going to go with someone much more like Will McDonald, who's taller, has a longer wingspan.
Yep, that's their MO.
That's their MO.
Yep.
But, that you're not going to get a guy at 28 that's going to add more juice to the pass rush than you would, at 5. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to get a Will Anderson or a Tyree Wilson.
Right.
So it's tough. It's tough to pick 28 there for a guy that's going to change the pass rush. But, some guys fall. Like, look at TJ Watt. He was like in the back half or the back, 75% of the first round. He was like top 25 pick from the Steelers. And look at him now. He's one of the best pass rushers. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but, it depends on who the Bengals like, body types and whatnot. And
all right, let's take a quick timeout. When we come back, we're going to get into the Reds.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Let's talk some Reds, Tom.
Absolutely.
Let's talk Reds.
I got to tell you, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. I mean, it really is.
It's sad.
I mean, everybody knew it was coming. Everybody knew it was coming, me included. But this is, when we take the break, and Ham and Eggers, you're going to take it. I want to ask you about, do you trust what they are doing down there? Okay? Do you, the Bengals right now, and look, I'm not one of these guys, okay, who just rolled out of bed yesterday. All right? The Bengals for a solid 20-plus, 30-plus years, I wouldn't trust them to throw a baseball from you to me on anything they did. Okay?
Yeah.
The majority of this franchise, they have stunk. Stunk. I mean, there was a solid 2 decades there until Marvin got here where it was brutal. Okay? Almost 2 decades. And then Marvin came in, and to his credit, he got this thing turned around in a heartbeat. They took a flyer on some guys. That most of them worked out. And he got them to the playoffs a number of times where they never won a game. The last 3 years, and it's only 3 years, the last 3 years, I think all of us sit in this room and we say, you know what? I trust what they're going to do. Right?
Right.
With the people they have in place. Duke Tobin, Katie Blackburn, Troy, the way they've sort of, been a part of this organization evolving, going out and spending money in free agency. Mike Brown doing that. 1 year he did it on the defense. Next year he did it on the offensive line. There's a trust there that, look, there's no guarantee their 28th pick in the draft is going to be a star or a starter or even a decent player. But you know what? Right now, don't you trust them? You trust them that they know what they're doing, that they're going to do the right thing. You trust them that you may not agree if they let this player leave, Jesse Bates, Von Bell, Hayden Hurst, but you trust that they probably have a good backup plan here as to what they're going to do. All right, and they've made some of those moves, and we'll see how it all plays out. But with the Reds are now going on the last time they won a playoff series. Playoff series was in 1995. Were you guys, I'm being serious, you weren't even born yet.
Nope.
No, I was born in 96.
I mean, there are, how long can you continue to rest on the first professional team? The Big Red Machine. The wire-to-wire of 1990. The last time, they even really celebrated a team. They had a couple of good teams there under Dusty who just flat out choked. They just choked, period. Call it whatever you want. That's what they did. They choked. They were up 2-0 in a best of 5 and lost 3 in a row at home to the Giants. And they had the best team in the National League that year. But do you trust what they're doing down there?
No.
When I look at their lineup right now, they have one player on the team next year that has a guaranteed contract. Now, certain guys are going to stay because you have them under control. But when you look at that lineup, and all of a sudden, all these guys who are not going to cover off the ball, and I'm talking about regular guys, India, that number's starting to continue to start 370, 320, 290, 280. Stevenson, 350, 330, 320, 250. Knocking on 240. And those are the two guys that you're building the rest of the offensive team around. India and Stevenson. Looking ahead to next. Forget this year. Although we're going to talk about this year. All right, lots to dissect there. Ham and Eggers, take it away.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Eggers. These guys are great. Trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Talked a lot about the Bengals here, obviously. The Bengals Report is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with a suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing models to improve efficiency and
productivity.
Visit encore.tech. The path to innovation begins here. There's also a new premium alkaline water out. It's Pawnee. It's a great way to get hydrated after a night out.
Absolutely.
Can confirm. Made right here in Hamilton, Ohio, Pawnee uses natural limestone filtration. Unlike the artificial processing that many other brands use, the result is a healthy alkaline water that is also the best tasting water in the world. Visit their website at pawneewater.com. That is PAHHNI water.com. PAHHNI water.com. to see where you can buy this great tasting water. Bet with Betfred, get your coffee from UDF, drink Pawnee water, and get your technology solutions from encore.tech. Yes.
If you don't have anything that you want to seriously talk about, there is one thing I have to talk about that's NBA related.
Well, okay. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Subscribe to the show on YouTube here. Like the video if you have not already liked the video. Make sure you go in and like it. Helps us out, helps the video out, helps the show out. And also, you can find the show on any podcast platform, just like you can find all of the Chatterbox podcasts, all on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen. Go subscribe. This show, Off the Bench, it's just a steady rise up, just continuing to climb the podcast numbers. So make sure if you haven't already, this show is always available. If you miss anything and you're driving and you can't watch it back on YouTube or whatever it might be, you can listen to the show in podcast form. Go ahead, Casey, with the NBA.
Well, I just wanted to say, can the Grizzlies actually prove that they're a good team? Or will the Lakers just steamroll them again, and then they're the laughingstock of the NBA again?
Lakers are rolling.
Lakers are rolling, in my opinion. And Dylan the villain,
he stinks.
I mean, he was calling out LeBron, saying, like, this old man, I can cover him. Dylan hasn't done crap.
No.
Nothing.
It's a lot of talk. Try to get yourself fired up, and then nothing happens. So, no. Grizzlies are frauds.
So, I'm looking forward to watching that game today because I'm looking forward to the Lakers dominating because they just seem like it looks like to me the Lakers are catching fire at the right time, which is always a good sign for these teams in the NBA. You want to catch fire at the right time and make a serious push and a run. But anyways, that little segment, the Ham and Eggers segment, a little NBA talk there.
Yeah, the Nuggets almost came back, swept. That was a great finish. Nuggets were down 12 with, I think, less than 2 minutes left. I was watching that.
Yeah.
I was watching it. They were down 12. I almost took the live money line. I haven't dabbled in a while, but I almost did it just for fun. Came back, 12-0 run in the last 2 minutes, tied the game, sent it to overtime, but the T-Wolves did end up winning. So, all right, Tom, let's get back to what we were talking about here.
Reds.
I'm just reading some of the comments in the chat here.
Okay.
Just to check everything out.
Are we going to start this segment off the right way?
Yeah, let's start it on a high note because one guy who took the time to get in his car, he's a transportation guy. That's our buddy Sir Boy Wonder, 513. Did you see this over the weekend? Let it roll.
Pre-game set at GABP presented by Kroger. Zero hunger, zero waste. Visit reds.com/tickets. Was that earlier Sir Boy Wonder and Mapo here at the game? What's up, guys? See them all the time outside of the lot on the way out of the ballpark. Regulars at GABP. Jonathan India.
Sir boy.
There he is.
Sir boy.
With his mom. She joined the program last week. That was nice to have her jump on. Was that the day, Casey, you were here or no?
I was not.
You were in-
Well,
it
I
was
was
Friday.
in the chat, but I was not here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, how cool is that?
That is really cool.
Mr. Sadak pointing it out that Sir Boy was there with his mom. That was very, very cool.
It was cool. I thought we were going to use that for the cherry on top, but we got something even better for that later on. But we needed to start it on a high note because there's not much good to talk about this Reds team. I mean, they needed to win this series. They needed to at least, win 3 games so we wouldn't have to talk crap about them. But there's just nothing good to talk about at all. Everyone's in a slump. But I'm not going to take over that conversation. I want you, Tom.
Paul,
What
I
are
want to
your
hear your
thoughts?
thoughts on it.
Here's the thing about the Reds, and this is something that we said from the very beginning this year, is that the record of this Reds team was not going to matter. And you asked the question, which I thought was a good question before we went to break. Do you trust what's happening downtown? Do you trust the vision and what the Reds are trying to do here? I think that Nick Krall has this team headed in the right direction. I think there is a level of trust that he needs, obviously, to build when the team has been so miserable for as long as they have. I mean, the fact that they haven't won a postseason series in the time that we've been alive, that is an entire generation of fans that they have not built. They had success, but they, Reed and Casey and I got into a pretty interesting discussion last week about what the most successful team in Cincinnati has been since the year 2000. What the most successful team in the city has been. And immediately the first thought that came to mind was the Reds, and then the more I thought about it, the Reds haven't done anything since the year 1995, 1996, 1995. They haven't done anything. And I do look at what the Orioles were doing 2 years ago when I was in their organization, and I remember talking to so many different guys about within the organization. I'm not talking players. The guys, the scouting guys, the analytics guys, the guys that were behind the scenes that were building the franchise and what they were doing. None of those guys cared about what relative. I don't want to make this seem like they don't care about the product on the major league field. The priority was what they were building in the minor leagues. I remember reading that story about Theo Epstein and how when the Cubs were really bad in the early 2010s, Theo Epstein is up there in the, he's in the suite at Wrigley Field. And, yeah, he's watching the game. He's at every game. But he's also got every minor league game on the TV, and he just kept saying to everybody, all the guys that were in the suite, don't worry, it's coming. It's coming. It's happening. It's coming. And I don't know if I have that same level of confidence that I would have in, like, what the Orioles were building or, like, what Theo Epstein built with the Cubs. But I do think that there are enough potential prospects in the Reds organization right now between CES, between Ellie De La Cruz, between this Abbott guy that's burst onto the scene this year. I mean, maybe he's had a great minor league career, but at least from what I've followed and really read about this year, he's had a fantastic season so far, just got called up to AAA. The Louisville Bats are an outstanding minor league team as far as excitement and generating excitement for what this Reds team could be. Look at all those names that are in the Louisville lineup right now. I do think that the Reds are headed in the right direction. The problem is that the fans are never going to be able to trust anything that this team is doing until they actually show the results on the field, because there's no trust factor at all built up down there at Great American right now. There's none. They have to build it from the ground up because they've been so miserably bad for the last 25 years.
Can I add something to this conversation?
Absolutely.
Because I do think the prospects are promising, but I do have a serious problem in believing that when they get these prospects that they're going to do anything with them. Because it's clear to me, and I don't have much patience for crap, especially watching the Reds and just as of late when you can't even field a ground ball and throw it to first base without it ripping through your glove, and that's an excuse that you have post-game. Oh, man, I that is unacceptable to me. To me, I can't hold – I don't think David Bell should be coaching next year. Or managing next year. Forgive me for saying coaching. He should not be managing this team next year because he shows no accountability for any of these players. They play terribly, and they continue to play terribly, and he makes excuses for them. I couldn't believe he made that excuse for Vossler, not catching a ground – or not a ground ball, but just a simple play at first base, going through the webbing of your glove.
Yeah.
Are we kidding?
Here's the thing about the coaching staff and what this team is doing, managing. And this is exactly the point, Tom, that I have made time and time and time again, and I will go to my grave saying this. It is important for this team and these guys to learn how to win. Even if they are not competitive from a standings perspective, it's important for these guys to know how to win. And that was something I understand. I'm beating a dead horse that I keep drawing on this experience with the Orioles. But the reason I keep talking about it so much is because it's so parallel to what the Reds are trying to do right now. And I see so many similarities. And I remember all these guys kept getting promoted from one minor league team to the other because they wanted to build the chemistry. They wanted to build the value of winning. The year I was there, that team that I was with, Bowie, was one of the best teams in that league. Those guys won together. Then they got promoted together. They were all best friends. They all knew how to one, win, and two, play together. I'm not as familiar with the Reds minor league system to know the day in and day out of what the clubhouse chemistry is like down in Louisville. But what I do know is that it is important at some point this season to start winning games. Even if they're out of contention by July 21st, if you can win in July, August, and September and show that there is promise, even if it's non-competitive to the grand scheme of this season, there's no reason why you can't make a move and just do an entire regime change for next year. The flip side of that argument is having a manager that started with all of these guys. Yeah. Having somebody that was there with the start of a lot of these guys' career who he can build with. That's the only people that know the answer to this question are the people inside that clubhouse and Nick Kroll. Those people downtown that know the answer to that question. We don't know that answer. We're not in the clubhouse day in and day out. We see what he says on the press conferences, and we see what he answers for after the game. But I can see both sides of the coin, but when you have lost as much as this team has lost in the last 5 to 6 years, there's no reason why you can't go out there and just start fresh.
Well, here's the thing. You know, I used to get all worked up when people would tell me, you brought up the name Theo Epstein earlier. And I have incredible respect for Theo Epstein, both as a general manager, president of baseball operations, as a guy. I really think quite a bit of him. But for people that walked around and said Theo Epstein was playing Moneyball, they're simply out of their mind. I mean, they just don't understand it. If you want to go by... And this was the thing with Billy Beane in Oakland, okay? His was truly a Moneyball, in theory, okay, game plan, where he went with younger, based on analytics, and all these different things, okay? That's what he did to build that team. He also had the best first 3 starters in all of Major League Baseball, okay? They had Zito, Mulder, and Hudson. I mean, these guys were unbelievable. Okay, they still never got to it. They didn't get to a World Series. But let me get to Theo for a minute, okay? Because people that say he built the Cubs under Moneyball, they were spending in 2016 upwards of $170, $180 million team payroll when that was high. It'd be the equivalent today of like a 250 team payroll, all right? But look at the way that team was built that won the World Series, okay? You start with drafting, right? Albert Almora, solid player. Wasn't a star, but solid player. Javier Baez, star. drafted out of Puerto Rico. Chris Bryant, star, National League most valuable player. Okay, then you get to trades. And here was a thing where Epstein was exceptional. Just exceptional. Okay, Jake Arrieta, right? Won a Cy Young Award. Traded to get him from Baltimore. You go through the rest of this team and the way they were built that year. Pedro Strop came in that same deal. Strop was as solid a reliever as there was in the league. Whatever role they put him in. Was he a great closer? No. But as a setup guy, right? Unbelievable. Aroldis Chapman. So you're taking on huge salary and the best closer in the game at the same time. You're taking on Carl Edwards. Got him from the Rangers. Justin Grimm. Kyle Hendricks. Stud starting pitcher. Got him in a trade. Miguel Montero. Starting catcher. Outstanding player. Got him in a trade from Arizona. Anthony Rizzo. Ever heard of him? Got him in a trade from the New York Yankees. Now, again, yes, maybe Moneyball in the way the kind of guy you want to draft, but most of these guys I'm talking about, if not immediately, they became huge money players. Addison Russell, former number 1 pick of the Oakland A's, got him in a deal. Then the free agents, and here is where the rubber meets the road, okay? So I'm asking you, when you brought up Theo Epstein, okay? So are the Reds going to make deals like those trades I just gave you? I don't know. They've swung a lot of trades in the last couple of years. We'll see how they play out. Maybe they'll be just like these, maybe even better. But then when the Cubs knew they were knocking on the door, they go out and they open the checkbook. They go get Dexter Fowler, okay? 3-year deal. They go get Jason Hayward, which turned out to be a terrible sign, by the way. They gave him in excess of $100 million. Jason Hayward. John Lackey. Outstanding starting pitching. Right? He comes in. He's pitching every 5 days. How about John Lester? $70 million they gave Lester, who became arguably, after Ferguson Jenkins, the next best pitcher in the history of the franchise. Ben Zobrist. So, and please, don't let me forget, in the international signings, okay, like the Reds with De La Cruz, you can't draft these guys, say they're from the Dominican, right, or Venezuela. Wilson Contreras. Not bad. Jorge Soler. Not bad. Okay, so look, even in the Rule 5 draft, they get Hector Rondon. He was at first a middle reliever, then became the primary setup guy in the bullpen to Aroldis Chapman. Oh, and by the way, did you know there's a kid named Schwarber who's from just down the road here in Middletown, Ohio? You ever heard of him? Kyle Schwarber. First-round draft pick. If that's what it takes to build a World Series champion, do you trust what they're doing down there?
Absolutely not.
Look, when you look at the players that are going to be on the field for this team next year, all of us agree universally. I think most teams in Major League Baseball, if you could quietly ask their general manager, would you make a straight-up trade right now? The front 3 guys in the Reds starting rotation for whoever you have in your front 3. Okay? And that includes teams like the Yankees. And they got Garrett Cole and some of these other guys. But they're making a gazillion dollars, right? Okay. Would you want Green, Lodolo, Ashcraft? I think 90% of the teams in baseball would trade straight up to have the Reds front three guys in the rotation. But here's the problem. I think those guys are staring down the barrel of what we saw this past weekend happening again next year and maybe the year after. The only two guys that they have playing, well, maybe throw in Spencer Steer, but Steer, India, Stevenson are the only three guys you know for sure are going to be back playing and starting for this team next year. Right?
And even Stevenson's been playing bad as of late.
Do those three guys worry you? If you're a pitcher on another team, you getting uptight about India, Stevenson, Steer? Like you would have maybe when the Cubs were losing 100 and something games. I remember, I can still picture it in my mind right now. Looking down there playing the Cubs in 15 when they're getting beat 100 and we're playing them in September. I'm looking at Soler. And I'm looking at Javier Baez. And I'm looking at Anthony Rizzo. And I'm going, ooh. Now, do they scare you?
Forgot Soler was on that team, too. Yeah. When you lay it out like that, it does make it a whole lot harder to believe in everything that they're trying to do and what it takes to build a team like that. And, you know, I see people talking about how the Cubs have not been what they were, you know, in 26. They haven't been that contending team since then. But I mean, it's the same deal with the Nationals in 2019. Who cares? You win the World Series. You take that 10 times out of 10, and whatever happens after that, I mean, you won the World Series.
That's right.
So whether it's stars not progressing, whether it's trading guys away, whether it's bad contracts, whatever it is, you win a World Series. You take that every single day of the week. But this whole Red situation right now is just it's a really frustrating one because nobody has any definitive answer or nobody has any definitive proof to say that they can go in one direction or another because all they've been doing is running in the same circle for the last 30 years, Tom. It's been one just big circle of suck for 30 years. So now they got to figure out, all right, what are we going to do to change that narrative? The Bengals did it. The Bengals absolutely did it. And you know what the Bengals did too, Tom? To an extent, they did it with the same ownership group. I know there were some changes and there was investment, but
it was the same ownership group, though, that went 55 and 120 from about 1990 to 2002.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
But I'm just saying, you know, when people talk about the Castellinis, when people talk about, you know, the Brown family and everything downtown, there is an opportunity there for the Castellinis to turn this around if they just want to invest and show the city that they care. But I've talked enough.
All right, we're going to get back to this a little bit later on. A real pleasure to be joined by Jason Williams, lead sports columnist at the Enquirer, four-time Ohio Columnist of the Year. And, man, you talk about a big league operator, voted as one of the top 100 most influential greater Cincinnatians. How do you walk around having to bear that kind of title, Mr. Williams?
I don't pay any attention to it, Tom. You know, it's just, whatever. Like I've never, the whole awards thing. I always joke about it in the media business and journalism. They've got an award for everyone. We give more awards in our business than Hollywood, I think. So that's sort of how I view it. Because I tell you, Tom, let me tell you this, because adjusting to the sports columnist job, replacing Paul Daugherty, has been a tough transition. It really has. It's been a very big challenge trying to find my voice, trying to find my place. I was the news political columnist for the Enquirer for 5 years. You know, it took a couple years to find my voice there. And I wasn't replacing a long-time, well-liked, incredible generational talent like Paul Daugherty in that seat. And I'll tell you, it's tough to make the adjustment, but it's been fun. It's been hard to allow myself kind of that time to learn and adjust, because you think, Oh goodness, and you know this, Tom. You when you went from when you went from Arizona to Cincinnati, there's an adjustment there. Even though you've been doing it so long, you still there's that kind of learning phase, and you think, "Gosh, I'm a veteran at this. I've been doing this thing for a long time," and yet in some ways you feel a little bit like a rookie again.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you about because, I mean, you were right there, whether it was at City Hall and all the mess that you were covering that went on down there before you moved over to the news side. Boy, talk about just a mess. I mean, you've forgotten more about it than I know about it, but you were writing about it all the time, and I was reading all about it because I like reading about that stuff. But, it could be also having to get to know and write about guys like, Rob Portman or whoever it might be, right? Mm-hmm. And then statewide and governor races and all this kind of thing, and then just the inside politics. What is there a common theme? Because there are a lot of people in sports that love to talk about politics. You've probably seen this, right? Since you've now been in both worlds. There are a lot of people that are in sports that really want to talk about politics, and there are a lot of people in politics that really want to be around sports. Have you noticed a common thread or a major difference between covering those two very visible worlds?
I originally thought, having been a sports writer earlier in my career, and in going to news and politics from sports, I saw a lot of similarities in that, there's a lot of, just from the coverage standpoint, there's a lot of late nights, there's a lot of, dealing with people who operate in a vacuum, there's a lot of money involved. And so kind of on the surfacey things, there's some similarities, but now coming back to sports, it's a lot different. I'll say this, and again, this is just sort of inside baseball stuff, but I will say, like, I don't get the feedback from the people I cover the way I did in politics. Like, I couldn't write a political column without 10 or 15 people blowing me up. Like, I didn't like it, or I liked it, or, you're, calling names or whatever. And I'm talking about insider people. Whereas now, like when I, write something, I rarely hear from the people that I've written about, which is totally fine with me. And I'm sure it will happen. And it has happened a couple times. So from that standpoint, I will say the sports folks, I think, have thicker skin, if that makes sense, because, I think on sports, there's so much more attention on it. You're the manager of the Reds, the coach of the Bengals, the top players of both teams, even, the UC folks, they're used to being criticized constantly on Twitter from a lot of people or on social media. Whereas, a local politician necessarily, there's maybe just a couple voices that have influence. Whereas, the Bengals, like you look at Bengals Twitter, and there are guys like, I'm like, who is it? Every day it seems like I find someone, I'm like, this guy's got 30,000 followers, and I'm like, I've never even heard of this person before. But and it's just such a different audience in terms of, I think just how even like the teams, the coaches, the players view the criticism. And I like to say there's thicker skin generally among sports folks than there are political people.
We were just talking about the Reds, and you've written quite a bit about the Reds. And, I had made the point to Paul and Casey here that, look, for all those of us really old enough to remember, I mean, the Bengals went through, nearly 15 years of being the laughingstock of the league. Now all of a sudden, they're the big dog in town. We'll get to them in a minute. But as far as the Reds go, I've always said that apathy was a lot worse than just pure dislike. And I sense a lot of apathy, but Jason, I also sense a lot of dislike. What do you think the state of the Reds franchise is right now in this town?
Overall, right now, it is not in a good way in terms of how the Reds are viewed outside of Great American Ballpark. I think inside Great American Ballpark, there's a feeling that the Reds are on the right track. And that sounds awkward to say after they've lost 6 in a row here and can't score a run. But they finally feel like from top to bottom they have a plan. I remember someone in ownership telling me this when I was in news, 5 years ago, really wanting and pushing and wanting the front office, the top owner, to strip this thing down and do basically what they're doing now, but to have done it several years ago. They've finally done that. There's finally a plan. Will the plan work? No idea. David Bell said yesterday after the game, trust the process. That's hard for fans to do, especially after hearing all these years, trust the process. Well, I think the process is different now, or the plan is different now, and now you have to execute the process of that plan. Man, that sounded really like a politician talking there. A lot of bureaucratic buzzwords. I worry about the Reds, Tom. I worry what they will win again. But when that comes around, how many fans have you lost? I did a story last year, and others talked about as well, comparing their first season in Great American Ballpark to last year. There was an average of 1 million fewer fans. That's really concerning. I'm really worried about baseball overall. I'm really worried about the economics for teams like the Cincinnati Reds and the Cleveland Guardians. But the Reds are at the very end, and people don't want to hear this, Tom, and I say this in my columns. I know others say this. The Reds are on the right track. I really believe that. I really believe they have a plan. I believe that they've now really done what needs to be done. I covered the Minnesota Twins for the St. Paul Pioneer Press earlier in my career. That's what the Twins, when they knew how to win as a small market club, the Reds are doing those things now. Now it's just a matter of time for development. And I also, I hate comparing the Bengals and the Reds. It's two different economic setups, two different sports, obviously. And I know folks in this town, because there are only 2 major league teams, top major league teams anyway. People want to compare them, and they've done that forever. And usually, a lot of times it's been the Reds on the other side of this. But I feel like as long as the Bengals are continuing to win, that even makes it worse for the Reds. Just from the standpoint of, well, gosh, look how bad the Bengals were for so long, and now look at them. But I can't emphasize this enough to folks. Like, the NFL is set up that you can go from worst to first in a year.
Yep.
Baseball is not like that. Baseball is a process. It is hard. The economics of the game are not set up that way. Just even the development of players aren't set up that way. There's a reason why baseball has a minor league system, and in football essentially doesn't. I mean, college football, obviously, but and so just on that fact alone, and when you think about the world and the sports culture we live in now, we want more and more instant gratification. And the Bengals winning, and from that standpoint, I think makes it even worse for the Reds. And again, I hate comparing the two, but as long as the Bengals are winning and you're getting that instant gratification and that football culture of everything, lives and dies on one game, and then the Reds are continuing, well, trust the process. It's going to take time. Maybe we'll be good in 2025. I think that really is tough for fans in this town, and certainly tough for people who are fans of both teams.
There's for any fan of any sport, and I always use in baseball the analogy of Joe Torre and Terry Francona. They were bums in a couple of stops as managers. And then all of a sudden they get to a place where they got good players and they're spending a lot of money and they're winning World Series. Torre with the Yankees, Francona with obviously Boston. David Bell, clearly, I'm not going to say that he has not been given good teams, because I think 2 years ago they had a good team. And look, everybody played through the pandemic, so to use that as an excuse is just nonsense. I mean, they go into playoffs and they can't score a single run for 2 days in Atlanta. Now, the last couple of years, they've had bad teams. Last year, this year. But I also hear a lot of fans saying, including me, that, you hear from him after the game and you're hearing those lines. Trust the process. Trust the process. We just need a few breaks. We can't get a ball to fall in. Yesterday, we can't get a pitch called our way. I mean, he's not making excuses, but, some of the fans want to hear somebody that's got, I think, a little more fire. Do you think that it may not be in Bell's personality? You've talked with him. You wrote a beautiful column about him in basketball the other day. I mean, can you imagine being in that spot that he's in right now?
I can't. It's got to be really tough. I do think I believe in David Bell. I think that he is I think he's got the it factor. I think he's good for this young clubhouse. I think, I don't think you really want a manager right now who's really fiery. Certainly you wouldn't have a manager. I mean, David Bell's ideal because this is his first managerial job. You're not going to have a veteran manager like a Dusty Baker who's going to roll with a team like this. And so to me, for David Bell to get fired up and throw a couple dingers a couple times a week, I don't think does any good for a young team that's developing. And, I think he's in a really tough position. I really believe when he says trust the process, he's falling back on that plan that, the plan that allows them to, or move them to, give a contract extension to Hunter Green last week. So he's looking at those things. I think he's looking at, can we get those three pitchers? Can they get those three pitchers to continue to grow and take another step this year? Well, so far, for the most part, the exception of, a few outings, they're doing that. And it's still a young season. But those are the kinds of victories, so to speak, that I think David Bell and the organization, Nick Kroll, are looking for, that, if they could at the end of this season say they didn't, that those three guys took the next step. I think that's a good thing. And then I think too, they'll be out from under the Votto contract, $25 million this year. That's having that $25 million freed up. I'm not saying they're going to go out and get some big free agent, but to be able to have some wiggle room with that money will allow them to, as they look forward to trying to keep some of these younger players here, at least through, they basically got another year out of Hunter Green than what they would have gotten if they didn't do this extension. And I think they're trying to hit that right at that, Hunter Green, I think, will be 28, 29 when that contract is up. So they really feel like, and if you look at the Tampa Bay Rays, with the exception of a couple players, their key players are all 28, 29, and 30. So if they can get this thing to where those guys and those key guys that they have now, those cornerstone players that are going to hit, right in the prime of their career in 27 and 28, when David Bell talks about trust the process, I think that's what he's talking about. Now, is he going to be here by that time to see that through? Who knows? There's one thing to stick to the plan, and who are all the key parts around the plan. Is the same leadership going to be there when they lose 100 games? And are they going to be patient with David Bell and allow him to be there when they think they're going to be good again? I have no idea. But I think David Bell is in a tough position. He's dealing with the roster he's been given. And when he says trust the process, that's not spin. That's literally he knows baseball, like his family. And, his dad, when his dad was a manager, was really handed a lot of pretty bad teams when he was with the Royals in Colorado. And Buddy's a little more fiery than David. But, I think that's all you can do is try to stay even keel and tell fans, trust the process. I know they don't want to hear it, but what else are you going to tell them? Because throwing young players under the bus and saying, dinging some kid for something, and I don't think is is going to be productive right now for this team.
All right, last thing I want to ask you about, because I heard you on the radio the other day, and you were talking to some of the powers that be about this whole Bally's thing.
Yeah.
I made the comment months and months ago that I thought this would become the biggest story in sports by far that has occurred in the last number of years. Bigger than any championship, bigger than any player, because this has such an explosive impact on NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball teams. Focus locally here on the Reds. They're not going to get their money. People can say whatever they want. You tell me, unless you've heard something different. Ultimately, they're not getting that money. That is a contract that was negotiated in good faith. They're not going to get it. Bally's is going, Diamond Sports is going bankrupt. Where do you think we watch the Cincinnati Reds after May this year? Do you think they're still on Bally's? And if not, do you think the Channel 5s, the Channel 19s, the Channel 9s of the world get involved in this thing?
That's a great question. I think we will be watching the Reds. I still don't know where. Would it be like a newly created, channel, so to speak, a different number on the cable systems, on the streaming systems? A lot of people haven't been able to watch Bally's now because they have YouTube TV, and they've never been able to strike a deal with YouTube TV. Maybe this could actually end up being better for viewers of the Reds, that you end up getting on, I don't know, some channel that's, it doesn't really matter about the channel. Is it who's going to be carrying it? I do believe someone will be carrying it. I think it'll be the same. It may not look any different than it does now. Same broadcasters, all that stuff, Tom, like all this stuff's in-house.
Yeah.
So the production may not look different. It just may be, the logo on the screen, or John Sadak doesn't come and say, "Welcome to Bally Sports Ohio." It's, I don't know, "Welcome to Major League Baseball's production of the Cincinnati Reds." I don't know. Fans will be watching it somewhere. I think this is in the short term a really challenging thing for the Reds at a time when they're struggling. And now you're going to throw at people like, oh, that same channel you always watch the Reds on, that they're not on that channel anymore. Now you got to punch in a different number, and you got to go figure out. And like, people don't like doing that, Tom. TV. Like, they don't like having their routine messed with on TV. I think in the bigger picture, long run, what's happening with Bally and the parent company Diamond, I think could be a really good thing for baseball. It could move baseball more toward a uniform, broader television deal for the entire league. Use the NFL as a model. I'm not saying it'll be like that, but this could be a step toward there just being a better overall contract for Major League Baseball. I don't know what that looks like. That's what I've heard from folks in the Reds front office, that long term this could be a good thing, but there's going to be a lot of short term growing pains and some painful things.
Jason, we can't thank you enough for your time today. I know you're very, very busy, but thanks so much, and we'd love to have you back again sometime soon.
Thank you, Tom. I'd love to do it, and really honored to be on your show. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a bunch,
Keep up the great
Jason
work.
Williams.
Thank
you, buddy. Lead columnist at the Cincinnati Enquirer, lead sports columnist after being lead political columnist for a long, long time. I mean, he laid it out there with the Reds. I know a lot of people in the chat, and look, I get it. And he acknowledged I get it. This trust the process thing is like New Age babble. What does that mean? Well, what does that mean? Trust the process. The process of what? Working hard? Okay, our guys are working hard. Trust the process of what? We got a plan? Okay, well, I heard that 5 years ago. And I heard it 7 years ago. And I heard it 3 years ago. Okay? I'm trusting exactly what? Define process for me. This is your generation's New Age babble.
What?
And that's why I couldn't believe – I almost fell out of my chair one day when I heard Nick Saban utter those words. There is nothing to worry about trust with Alabama. They just kick everybody's ass every week. They got it down. We go recruit. We get the best recruits. When we get them in here, we turn them into animals, and we just go blast everybody's tail every Saturday. Right? That's the process at Alabama. What is the process on Joe Nuxall Way? What does that mean?
Well, if you want to say that there's any process, the process has been going downhill. It's getting worse. They're getting worse and worse. I mean, they couldn't get any worse than last year, and that was a trust the process moment. I mean,
I can't. I'm trying. What?
You're thrown off because you said it's a new age thing.
Yeah, I'm. Yeah.
What am I trusting? When you hear that term, trust the process, what does that mean? Look, you put trust in things even if you can't see them, right? You trust in God. You haven't seen him, but you know he's there. There are certain things then in this world, not the spiritual world, where there is a track record of trusting, right? Okay, you trust every year, and you can say, well, yeah, they got all the money in the world, but you can trust every year the New York Yankees are going to have a competitive team, right?
Right.
You can trust every year, although the Dodgers went 20-something years without winning a World Series, right? But Alabama football, Ohio State football, okay? You have, and you might go through some of this, not necessarily Alabama and Ohio State, take USC. One of the great football traditions of all time, and then right in the tank. Who are you supposed to believe in there? Mike Garrett is the AD? Right? Clay Helton? Now Lincoln Riley's in town. You going to trust that? Probably a pretty good chance you might trust that, right? Urban shows up in Columbus? Probably a pretty good chance that whatever process he's got going on, I think I can trust that. What do you trust in whatever the process is? How are fans supposed to listen to that babble? You guys think about it for a minute. I'm running to the head, and we got Zim in a minute.
It's that time of the show, the Ham and Daggers. These guys are great, trust me, I would know. I introduce all the best segments.
Well, I mean, to just answer his question. And by the way, that's just like the participation trophies that weren't built by me and
Generational
Paul
warfare.
Here. It was built by guys like Tom's age. His generation is the one that says, trust the process. That's what we've been fed all of our life. Regardless.
Thank you, Casey.
Regardless, there is nothing to trust about this Reds team. I mean, there's no progress being made, if you ask me. So what process is there what process is there to trust when there's no progress being made?
Well, I think there are two different arguments to what he was talking about with trusting the process. And if there's nothing there that you can trust, then yes. Then if there is no track record of, but that's the same point that I was making before Jason joined the show. That's exactly the same point that I was making, that when you have a track record of success and you have data points that you can prove, that you can show, here's what we did. When you think trust the process, 99% of people, when you say trust the process, you're going to think of Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers. That's what you're thinking of when you hear that. Like, they've been okay, but their whole deal was obviously to win an NBA title, and they have not come close to that. They've been fine. They've been serviceable. They've consistently made the postseason. But when they've gotten there, they haven't done anything, at least to the point of success to where they thought they were going to build to when this whole process started with them.
Right.
So when you're looking at the Reds and this franchise and trusting the process and trusting what Nick Kroll is building down there, you're putting a lot of blind faith into something that you just have to hope pays off. And that's exactly the point that I made 35 minutes ago, where I said they haven't given you anything in the last 30 years, 28 years, to hang your hat on to say, we can trust you with this.
Right. I mean, I agree. And it was people like Thom who created that word and that phrase, trust the process, that just, they stuck it in our young brains, and now it's just, it's there all the time.
And now here he goes. What I'm talking about, your generation's psychobabble, okay? Trust the process is a slogan used by fans of the NBA's Philadelphia 76ers. Did you guys get into this?
Yeah, we were just talking.
All right, well, then I missed it. Okay. 2018, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this is your generation's
Why? How is it our generation?
2018.
How is it our generation?
2018. I mean, that's your generation.
You're
right
telling
there.
me never in the
We didn't
history
hear
of-
this nonsense when Woody Hayes was coaching. We didn't hear this nonsense when Vince Lombardi
But how
was
is it
coaching.
nonsense, though?
We didn't hear
Hold
this
on.
nonsense when Don Shula was coaching.
How is it
Hang on,
nonsense,
wait.
though?
But it's people your age that are the ones saying it. Back then, that was
There
your
aren't people
parents.
my age saying it.
Why is
my age?
Why is trusting
Vince
the process?
Kroll's not my Nick Kroll's not my age.
But why is
But
what
it's not ours.
why is what the 76ers did bad?
Do you
though?
hear Dusty Baker saying that? He's my age. Do you hear him saying that?
But why is it bad?
Because it's babble. It's complete nonsense. What does process mean? What, define it for me.
That there's a plan in place for success down the line.
And to earn trust, you have to have proven before that your process, whatever that criteria might be, has been successful somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, if Nick Saban drops that line, like I said before, I'm like, okay, I get it. I've seen his process.
But that's a different argument then. That's different. Unless
I'm saying for David Bell to say night after night after night,
Yes.
what does the franchise he works for, what have they done as far as process is concerned that would make you even remotely think about putting your trust in it? What have they done?
Well, but that's what I said 40 minutes ago. So now we're just talking in circles. Because that's what I said.
And I love Nick Kroll. Let me just say that right now. I like Nick Kroll, and I think he knows what he's doing. I really do. I think he knows what he's doing. But he ultimately is going to get hamstrung because of the economic structure under which baseball falls under, sooner or later. People can talk to me about the Rays. They can talk to me about the A's. The big spenders win, and the little spenders don't. When I say win, I mean win the whole thing. That's why you're in the game, right? Do you start an NFL season saying, man, I hope we can, win the division? Okay, if that's part of your building it up to get to another level, that's fine. Understandable at times. But is not the goal baseball, football, basketball, hockey, Marymount Sports 5th grade basketball? Is it not to win the whole thing?
Of course.
Okay. That's the goal.
Obviously, that's the goal.
Well, no, it's not obvious it's the goal because for some people, it's just not obvious. It's not. Does anybody think the goal of over half the teams in baseball this year is to win the World Series?
No.
Okay. So it's not the goal.
Well, they can't set unrealistic expectations because they'll never meet them. Kind of like the Reds right now. They can't set World Series expectations right now. so their expectations are a little lower. I get what you're saying, Tom, but the problem was trusting the process, right? And I guess we have to define what process we're trying to create here. When I hear that, I think Super Bowl. I think championships. So when I hear David Bell say, just trust the process, we're going to get there, I think he's full of crap. There's no process to trust there.
But there's a minor league system that has guys that are coming up that are at least have some more potential than 6 years ago.
What has he shown with the players that he's got available to him now and in the past 4 years?
But they're not trying to win now is the difference. They're not trying to win now. Now, I will go back to the 2020 postseason to build from there and then tear everything down. Yeah. And again, they've never won under David Bell. And that's my biggest concern with it. My biggest concern with David Bell is that they've never won. Now, he's never been dealt the right hand. Never. I would argue that David Bell has not been dealt a true full hand of cards to really win at a competitive level. They went 31-29 in the COVID year, whatever the record was that year. I think. Do
you think that team on the field was better than 31-29? When you watch the lineup they were running out there every day, that team should have been a hell of a lot better than 31-29.
Yeah.
Huh?
They had a Cy Young Award winner.
I mean, yeah. And Luis Castillo was their number 2 or 3 starter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, I'm with you last year and this year on what Bell has been handed. That can't even be debated. No doubt about it. No doubt. But don't talk to me about 20 and 21. They had some players on those teams.
They did.
They had some players, damn good players, right? They really did. And, look, is it David Bell's fault that they go to Atlanta and for 2 days can't score a run? That's not his fault. That's not his fault. But, I mean, look, you're paid to win games. And you're paid to see improvement. Now, I will say for the first time, his comments yesterday after the game were the first time where I've read, hey, look, we got a long, long way to go here. We got to get some stuff figured out. So, who knows? Maybe he's starting to get a little tired of it.
Sure hope so.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Sir Boy Wonder points out, look at the first 3 guys in that starting rotation for that team that year.
Sonny Gray.
Sonny Gray. Stud. At least he was then. I don't know what he's doing now. But you had Gray, Castillo, and Bauer. Right? I mean, I don't know. You're going to trust the process. That's what we're going to do. Did anybody believe, and I go to bat for Marvin Lewis a lot around here as far as what he did initially for the Bengals franchise, the mess that was before he got there. We got Zim Whodey coming up any minute now. Was anybody going to buy into Marvin after you lose for the 4th or 5th time in round 1 of the playoffs? A couple of those at home against lesser talented teams? Was anybody going to listen to that nonsense if he said trust the process? No. The only person that bought that argument was Mike Brown because he kept bringing it back. After about your 3rd or 4th trip to the playoffs and you're getting your tail kicked in round 1 by the Chargers and the Texans, right? Teams like that at home, done. Done. You move on if you're really about winning. Marvin Lewis was allowed to be a .500 coach for over 12 years and never won a playoff game. Not one Bengals fan was going to buy that nonsense. Trust what we're doing down here. We're going to stay the path. True?
True. I mean, we got it figured out.
They got it figured out. And that's why they now have earned the trust of the fans. Now, that can turn on you in a heartbeat.
Very fast.
Very, very fast. But right now, they've earned some trust. We'll see how it plays out Zim said, did we send the link?
Yes, we did. I can send another one if he wants it. Yeah, I mean, you asked me, and this might be something that we talk about in further length. I mean, it might be obvious, it might not be. It is very hard to build trust within a fan base. That's not like, I mean, rocket science, but it took how long before we really started trusting the Bengals? And some of us still don't really trust them all that much. Still have hesitation and a little weariness of Bengals moves. I mean, it's hard, and it's going to take a lot of winning for the Reds organization before they really start getting any trust back from their fans. And that's just the truth. Winning fixes everything.
Now, I'll tell you, you bring up a great point here, Casey, because I'm going to tell you right now, and I can see it coming from a mile away, and I hope I'm wrong. But I'll tell you one thing that better happen. The Bengals in the next 2 years, they better win a Super Bowl. Because if they don't, with the talent they have on this team, 2 years ago, last year, this coming year, if they don't, then the whispers, here they come. Right? Can't win the big one. Can't win the big one. Can't win the big one. So everybody's trusting them now. It's now up to that organization and Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow and that whole group that they got to go out and win it all. Not get to another Super Bowl. That'd be great. I mean, heck, hopefully Chatterbox Sports will spend a little money. We'll go down and cover the Super Bowl if the Bengals are in it next year. We'll do our show from Radio Row.
That'd be sweet.
Right? That would be fun. Look who is in the house. I mean to tell you, I've missed his smile. I missed his enthusiasm. It has not been the same around here since football season ended. Everybody was so excited. Zim Whodey, welcome back, my man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing awesome. I'm doing really good. We got a big day coming up on Thursday night, Tom. Are you familiar with the NFL draft?
I am, but before we get to that, it looks to me like you've been doing a little homework back there. You got some curtains and stuff going on there. You look like you're kind of making some changes around the crib. I mean, you got it going on.
I'm doing some stuff. You see, I got some, hold on this side. I got some soap. I got a coffee. I just drank some coffee. I got my coffee maker, a refrigerator. I'm just a normal guy just like you, Tom.
Amen,
in my
brother.
refrigerator, it's not that much stuff in there, but I'm working on it.
So, Sarah, how you doing? Your family good? Everybody all right? Your son doing all right?
Yeah, he's doing awesome, man. I just came back from Jamaica. I was there for like 5 days or whatever. Just came back, family trip. Had to get away from football for a second. So it was really dope. I just came back like 2 days ago or whatever. So I feel really good. I haven't talked football in a while, so I was so glad to talk to you yesterday.
I can see you got a little tan. You got a little
a little bit.
You got a little tan. Yep. People ask that question. I mean, and I'm being serious when I say this because I know this stuff, right? I know this stuff. My
really?
my stepfather was African American, right? And I mean, yeah, and so I know, and I'd hear him talk about it. He looked at me, he says, "What, you think I can't get a tan?" Right. And I said, well, of course you can get a tan, right? I mean, the pigment of the skin might be a little bit different, but can you get sunburn?
I was just about to say that. My wife got a sunburn crazy. I was just about to say, you think I don't put on sunblock? Like my skin, my shoulders are like kind of burnt right now at this point. But yeah, I put on some. Okay. What sunblock are you wearing these days? You wearing 50, 70? What are you pushing?
No,
30s,
hell
50,
no. I mean,
70?
look at me, Zim. Come on. I mean,
you look like you take a trip or two.
Well, no. I mean, I'm outside a lot for our son's high school lacrosse games. And we had a couple of games last week where it was like 80-something degrees, although we can't break 40 now. But it was like 80-something degrees sitting right in the sun for like 3 hours. So, yeah, I mean, get a little color.
I see the 1-800, call gambler if I'm having a gambling problem. I was just about to say I could throw down a little money on your son's lacrosse game if you really want to get some action going.
Well, I bet big money on him tonight. I can tell you that right now.
I'm gonna bet the house on him.
Bet the house on him. All right. So let's get to. Somebody said, "Tom, be careful." Zim, we're good, Tom, right? I mean, we know we're good. All right. Okay, so
we're gonna go over our sunblock regimen after we get off air.
Absolutely. All right, I want to go back. To this whole thing, starting with Joe Mixon. Okay, you're close with Joe. Ooh. You have a relationship with Joe, and the whole 9 yards. What do you think is going to happen with Joe Mixon and his future with the Bengals? What do you think is going to happen? Because there's all kinds of stories and rumors and speculation. What happens?
I think the short answer is this. I feel like a lot of people were conditioned to think that he's like vastly overpaid for his position. And that's a big, significant portion of this whole deal. The whole off the field stuff kind of goes hand in hand with it, right? But if you look at it, a lot of people always phrase this, and this has been my number one thing, and I don't know why people say this. He's not making $12 million this upcoming year. He's making $10 million. His cap hit is $12 million. So when you put his money in the whole, the marketplace of the people around him, like David Montgomery, Miles Sanders and company and all those guys like that, they're making $7-8 million. Do we all think that Joe Mixon is better than Miles Sanders and David Montgomery? I would think most people would think so. Yeah, those dudes make $6 and $7 million. So this concept of him making so much significantly lower than that for a guy that just came off 1,300 yards and all-purpose yards in a down year. Remember, he only played 14 games out of 17. So I don't know when the conditioning process started. I know a lot of people to say that your preference would be a different guy or somebody to play better. That's fine. But market value, like online, like Spotrac, the companies that do it, they're saying he's valued at $12 million. He's paid $10 million. So that, to me, is like the beginning of everything, and that's where all the conversations come from. Me being a Bengals fan, sure, I want him to take a pay cut. But the likelihood of him taking a pay cut versus the likelihood of the Bengals asking him to take a pay cut, I think are very slim compared to what most people think. Remember, people thought he was going to get cut right after the season, and that never happened. People also thought P-Ryan would start over him one time. That never happened. My perception of Joe Mixon is a lot like how players look at Joe Mixon, like he's still like a top 10 running back. Now, a lot of people don't feel that same way, and that doesn't have anything to do with my relationship with him. That's just me watching football. Like 1,300 yards, all-purpose yards for a team that doesn't really run the football that much. It's still a lot. I remember I came on the show. You said, I think Joe Mixon was the best player on the field in the Bills game. And I always remember that, and I say that over and over in my head. And then what did they do the following week? They didn't give him the ball. But then who is the person that is like the scapegoat? It's like Joe Mixon for some weird reason. I think the Bengals value him a lot more than what a lot of people online do. And so you saw that with Callahan's son, the other day where he said, Brian Callahan, we're looking for a back to complement Joe Mixon. And I think that a lot of people aren't processing how they view Mixon is different. And the breakdowns that I've given just now about who he compares to in a market, like Miles Sanders making $7 million, like people really think Joe Mixon should make less than Miles Sanders at $7 million or David Montgomery and all these guys like that. Even if you think that he should take a pay cut, what is the cut, like $2-3 million or something to get down to Miles Sanders level or something? Like this concept that he would go to $4 or $5 million. The other side that they never present to people is this. Say he doesn't take this pay cut that you're standing hard on and saying he must take a pay cut, right? You know that you would hypothetically, if he said no, give him to a opposing team like an AFC team, could be the Chiefs, could be the Bills, could be the 49ers or the Eagles, that you could give it to them for a discounted rate at like $4 or $5 million now that the market is now dried up. That's the other side of the spectrum that I don't think people think of. Like you would be handing somebody a top 10 receiving running back.
Yep.
He was top 3 this past season. He ended up 3rd. In receiving yards and in catches, he was third. In yards, he was fifth. Even with missing 3 games, you would just be handing that to an opposing team.
That's a good point.
And I think the Bengals are very cognizant, like they understand that too. It's like the downside is if you do cut him and you think you got this leverage, somebody's about to get him at a discounted rate. Now you might say, I don't care. That's cool. But now you're going to base all your hope on a rookie running back. And I just don't think that that's appeal. Now you could go back and go get Zeke, and I think that would work as a compliment to the new rookie running back. But running backs just don't. I don't know. My perception on this is very different than what I read online. I think.
Well, I mean, look, I think but the one thing I respect about you, Zim, all the time, no matter what, and we joke around a lot and kid around a lot, is, I mean, you're very, very informed and present opinions that a lot of people just want to throw out the door when it comes to mix. I mean, look, you know and I know. What's true, what's not true, I don't know. We're going to find out sooner or later. But this has not been a good offseason for Joe, just as far as the look is concerned. And now you throw that in with the financial part of it, so on and so forth. Okay, you got that. Next thing I want to ask you about, you thought a couple of weeks ago that the Bengals got this thing done with T. Higgins. What are your thoughts on that?
I still feel the same way in this regard. The people that are around him, the people that I know, and, like, people do know this. Like, T. Higgins came to our Twitter spaces to talk ball with us, and he announced to us that he had a number, he was wearing number 5. I feel like I'm pretty cool with a lot of different people. We have a lot of mutual, really good friends. I've never, there's pictures all over the internet. Me and T. Higgins might be at a party or something like that, So there's all these different things that are there. So this concept that people would think that I would make it up is kind of crazy to me. I just think that maybe somebody was misinformed, or maybe they are at the point where they are finished in principle, but then they're ironing out other different aspects of it. Because the number one thing that I thought is immediately when I said that too is like the deal is done, is that, okay, it wouldn't really make sense for him to have a deal before Burrow. So maybe they're sitting on what they know, but then that doesn't really make sense either too, because as time goes by and say somebody like a Justin Jefferson sign or something like that, it doesn't help your cause out. So 100%, if the deal is done, you sign it and get that out the way, and you don't hold it back, you release it, and he has his own press conference. So there's a lot of different question marks about it. If he has, it hasn't released or anything yet, I just think that something changed. Something happened that, in my mind, I never reported it with a timetable or anything like that.
Right.
And I didn't even say it as a report. I just said it based off the information that I knew that was told to me. And I'm not just hearing that just randomly or just waking up with those thoughts. Like this all season, just recapping, I told people that Travion Williams was signed before he was signed. Foster Moreau was coming in for a visit before any of the big people. A lot of stuff. Awuzie being as healthy as he was, I've been preaching that for weeks. Like I literally seen him, walking around. So like there's other things that I do know that sometimes I say, sometimes I don't. At that given moment, I thought that was a good time. Like I always forget that I'm not just talking to Bengals fans anymore. As like your son, how you found me on Instagram.
Right.
It's just originally I just was always talking to Bengals fans. Like, bro, like look, this is what we get, and I'm excited. But then I forget about like, man, there's agents, there's so many people that don't have your best interest. There's so many people that don't want the deal to be done. There's so many factors in something like just that one tweet that I wasn't calculated in my thought process. That's something normally I probably wouldn't have tweeted out. I just was excited. And I still think it's going to get done, but I don't know. I'm not an agent and I'm not a reporter.
All right. A couple quick things before we let you go. Draft. You leaning anywhere as far as position is concerned? I know you hear this stuff about we're going to take the best player when he's available. I get all that. But at the end of the day, with that 28th pick, what do you think the Bengals end up doing with that?
I think if you have the opportunity to get like an elite trench person, say it's offensive line or defensive tackle, that's where I go at. So if one of the big guys like a Van Ness, Nolan Smith, Miles Murphy, guys like that fall to you, you take that guy. Because that's day one. I like to marry my BPA with impact versus the need. The Bengals need interior pressure. Bengals need rotation. Bengals need a healthy dose of pressure that's even behind Trey Hendrickson, and any leverage in that same situation. I feel the same way about offensive line, but you can't Jake Fisher or Cedric Ogbuehi yourself in the first round, so you can't reach. It really would just be like Darnell Wright, like first round. And then after that, then that's where I come back to Mayer. Mayer offers you something that a lot of people don't understand. I'm not looking for my running back to pass protect. I'm looking for a tight end that can be in line so that if a team dare blitz me, I'm sending running backs out to the flat. That's how Joe Mixon got 60 receptions. That's how Joe Mixon was third in the NFL in receptions, is by going out into the flats and just killing teams just like he did in the Bills game. And if you have a tight end that's in line, if you get yourself in a situation like the AFC Championship game, you have somebody on the line of scrimmage that can block. He can chip. If nobody comes, he can leak out, and now he's in weapon. Mayer, what he was asked to do at Notre Dame, 800 yards, number one target on his team, is steroids for the Bengals because of the blocking aspect. We just interviewed Irv Smith 2-3 days ago. I believe in Irv Smith, but at the same time, he doesn't offer you inline blocking, and that is where I'm looking for an extension of an offensive lineman, especially if I have question marks at right tackle. I'm not looking for a running back to block. The Bengals are the least blitz team in the National Football League. When people lead with, can the running back block or whatever, I get it. P. Ryan was on the field 60 times in pass pro. That breaks down to 3.2 times per game in a season. I'm not basing a running back. Imagine me saying, Tom, you think we should sign Nick Chubb for a couple $1 million? And you said, well, he can't pass protect. You would look at me like I would be looking at you like you're crazy. I'd be like, Nick Chubb is one of the best runners in the league. Running backs run and catch. I'm not really like, can they pass protect? Sure. But if I had a tight end that was inline blocking like a Mayer, that is something that the Bengals don't have. And then I fall back, and my last tier would be Emmanuel Forbes if he was there, or like Deonte Banks or one of the corners.
Okay. All right. Zim, it's great having you back, my man. We missed you. Welcome back from Jamaica. And we're going to be catching up a lot here soon. Now, tell everybody, during the draft, you're going to be live on the air, right?
Yes. Thank you for reminding me that.
Sure.
I'm going to have a mock draft special on Wednesday on Cincinnati Pod. Make sure you follow Zim Whodey. Make sure you follow Cincinnati Pod. Thom, I'm putting the pressure on Thom. Thursday, I'm having a draft day special. It's going to be like 4 hours. Yep. Thom, I've asked to pop in on there. I have a star-studded cast. I don't know if anybody is as famous as you, but we do have a couple players. Well, then
you must be really digging near the bottom of the barrel, because if I'm closest to being the most well-known that's going to be on Cincinnati Pod, I wouldn't tell that publicly.
Thom, you're the man, so we need you.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm gonna just leave it at that. We need you.
I'm going to be there. I gave you my word.
Right.
I'll do anything for you, Zim. I'll be there for you, my man.
I got a star-studded cast. I got a guy, his name rhymes with Cheater. He's going to be on there. You're thinking there's only
Cheater?
That guy's going to
Beer?
Rhymes with Cheater.
Oh, Cheater.
Rhymes with Beater. So I got players, and I got talent like yourself, Thom. I got some high level. I got some old names. I got a Hugh Jackson. I got a lot of guys that are going to be pulling up. A lot of girls too, that are going to be pulling up to this extravaganza.
Are you having Derek Jeter on the program?
No, this is an NFL player that plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. So we have a lot of different.
Oh, I got you now. Okay, all right. The big fella.
It's a big guy. So I'm announcing that for the first time here with you, but we got a bunch of guys that are going to be on this show, and Thom's going to be on there. So if you're a fan of Thom's show here, you need to come on over to Cincinnati on Thursday. We're going to have a big draft.
What time are you starting that up on Thursday?
Starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we're rocking all the way through, so you're going to be able to see my live reaction to the pick and everything.
Okay, well, you let me know when you want me to be there, and I'll be there. I don't want to get in anybody's way. But like I said, you're always here for us, Zim, and we're always on Off the Bench going to be there for you. We love you, my man. Welcome back.
Yes, sir. I'm off the bench.
Yes, you are. All right, Zim, take it easy, my man.
All right.
Zim, back in the house. Always great to have Zim back.
Absolutely. There is one thing that we didn't really get to talk to him about. I wanted his thoughts on the Jonah Williams thing.
Oh, yeah, my bad.
It's okay.
No, that's my bad. I tell you, though, you know what? You have to respect his take, personal feelings aside. When he lays out arguments for keeping Mixon, they are sound arguments.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. I think they're sound arguments. I personally did a whole lot of research into Mixon, and I was going to do a whole spiel, maybe a little insider info. I was going to do a tiny show myself about Joe Mixon because it was just a huge deal, and the numbers just don't make sense for the hate that Mixon gets.
Okay, so can you do this? Can we do this tomorrow?
Yeah.
I've got a whole thing on this?
Yeah, I got a whole breakdown of it.
Okay.
If you want it.
Well, of course we do. We liked informed opinions around here.
Well, back then, everyone was just tired about talking about Mixon as well. And I just wanted once and for all to end that conversation because it just didn't make sense. But anyways, besides that, how about the draft show? That's awesome, Thom.
That is.
It's going to be really fun to watch with all those guys.
Well, you better not be thin-skinned if you're joining in on that podcast. Because it better be a pick that Zim likes.
Oh, yeah.
Or women and children run for the hills.
Are we in the trust tree here?
Trust tree? Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Trust tree?
Yeah. Are we in that? Because we talked about a cherry on top earlier.
Yes.
And for the life of me, I cannot remember what it was.
It's a kid from Pittsburgh.
Yes, that is exactly it. Yep, I'll pull it up. You're right.
Yeah, trust tree is kind of like safe space.
Yeah, that's right.
Safe space.
All right.
If I see more people talk about this Viking helmet that I wore, and this being the reason why the Reds are losing, I mean, jinxes don't exist. Right?
Jinxes don't exist. Thom, you want the video of him getting called up, or do you want the video of him walking into the locker room the first time?
You know what? I want him getting called up. For those of you that did not see this story, okay, this is the story of Drew. Did they pronounce it?
I heard Maggie.
Maggie. Okay, this is the story of Drew Maggie, and the video you're going to see is his manager at AA Altoona. And this young man, Maggie, has played. Okay, he has played since coming out of Arizona State University. He has played in 1,155 games in the minor leagues. 13 years in the minor leagues. So here he is. He shows up AA, ready to do his job the other day. And this is his manager addressing the team.
About how life is like a journey. We talked about 3 words. We talked about perspective. We talked about choice. We talked about grit. We also talked about how that can be a really important springboard for this group as we went into the season. With the natural difficulties of baseball and also life, right? And so baseball is like this wonderful microcosm to everything that we do and the reason why we navigate every single day. And so the one thing I forgot to talk about was all of that was in an effort to not only win, but give yourselves 1+ day in the major leagues, right? And there's some of us that have had the chance to be in the major leagues, and it was for 1 day. And there's going to be some of us going to get a chance to take that 1 day and turn it into a 1+. And so it is with great pleasure that I get to promote my first person to the major leagues and someone that is tremendously important to this group and someone that exemplifies grit a choice to continue to fight for what he wants in life, and a lot of that is having the right perspective. And so, Maggie, you're going to get an opportunity to.
I mean, it doesn't get any cooler than that.
1,155 minor league games over the course of 13 minor league seasons.
He said he kept telling himself over and over, and this is what I was saying to you on a much smaller scale about Jack Nungy in basketball, right? I mean, this kid just kept saying, man, I love baseball. I'm keeping the dream alive. And, there's nothing I'd rather be doing. So he just kept playing. The thing that broke my heart, and I mean, that made me tear up a little bit watching that thing when I saw it the first time. I mean, because I've met so many of those young men who they never got that moment. I can't tell you how much it bothers me that they did not put him in the game over the weekend. I can't tell you how much it bothers me. The only reason this young man was called up is because they had a player that went on the bereavement list. And I don't know how many days that is. I think it's 5. Okay? He was called up Thursday. They played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He did not get into the game one time. I just think that there is a serious disconnect there somewhere in the world. That you just played 4 games and all of them were tight games in Major League Baseball games. You mean to tell me you can't find one defensive replacement? You can't find one pinch hit at bat to get that kid in the game over the weekend? Boy. Oh, boy. I mean, there are very few things in sports that get me angry. I was angry that kid did not get in a game this weekend. Been waiting 13 years to get to the big leagues. And he sits on his tail for 4 days. Best 4 days of his professional life, no doubt. Am I wrong on that?
No, he didn't get in.
No, am I wrong about the reaction to it? That they can't find a single one play, one batter. He can't get in a game for 4 days?
It's sad. I mean,
I thought he only got called up on Sunday, though.
No.
I think it was just yesterday, Tom. I think it was just.
I thought he was called up on. I thought he got. Unless I read it wrong, I thought he got called up on Friday.
Yeah, they selected his contract on Sunday. So it was just yesterday's game, and that was a close game.
So he still has some time to play.
Well, I don't know when they're going to send him back down. They might have just sent him back down. It was just yesterday, though, Tom.
Well, then the article that I read then had the thing screwed up because that video. Yeah. Okay. So now they're saying he got into Pittsburgh Saturday.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And they activate him for Sunday. Okay. Then I'm gonna back off and I'm gonna leave that alone, and we're gonna celebrate the fact that he's in the big leagues. I would like to think. Let's check out the schedule here real quick. I would like to think, and that's on me for messing that up, the Pirates are off tonight, if I'm reading this correctly, and we'll open a series against the Dodgers tomorrow night at home. And the Pirates are the hottest team in the league. I mean, they got it going on. Nice helmet, Case.
Yeah, I was just tired of people saying that the helmet's the reason why they're losing. That's just not the case, Tom. This team is just bad. Okay? Jinxes don't exist. Y'all can relax. This helmet is staying here in the studio, and I will wear it with pride because
NKU.
North's up, but also in reference to our fallen comrade, Leif Erikson, who just he's gone, Tom. Where is Leif?
What do you mean he's gone? He was around last week. He was here Friday.
He said he was.
No, he wasn't here Friday because he said Thursday. He said he was revoking his viewership of the show because it had fallen because of Casey's hammer with the block button.
I tried to apologize, and
Casey killed Leif Erikson.
Chatterbox tried to promote him to moderation, but he would not pledge his loyalty to Chatterbox. So I don't know.
Leif quit the chat.
Leif quit on you guys. He quit on you.
He did. And I take a personal offense to that. I'm with you. He did.
Very cowardly of Leif.
You said that. I didn't say that. All right, gentlemen. Casey, thank you. Paul, thank you.
Absolutely. Tom.
Tomorrow, Paul Doctor will be with us. Tracy Jones will be with us. We're working on a couple of other guys that really likes trying to get somebody.
Right?
What's that?
Mary Kay coming on tomorrow?
Oh, yeah. Mary Kay Cabot coming on tomorrow. So looking forward to that. Really got to get somebody from the Ravens before we hit Thursday. Like I said, I've reached out to 4 or 5 different guys. I mean, look, maybe that tells me something I need to change in some way.
I mean, not Leif. Engraven was really good. Why don't we just get him back?
He was great. I loved him. And so if we get him back, that'd be great too. But I want to, I want to get some insight on where they really think this whole Lamar Jackson thing is, because we are now up against it officially.
For them, yeah.
Big time.
Big time.
All right. We will take care of yourself, Paul. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is box lunch coming up?
No box lunch today.
No box lunch.
No box lunch today.
Okay. All right. Then we're back here tomorrow. Good Lord willing at 10. We'll see you tomorrow.